people will use all sorts of terms, but those terms don't denote what's exactly going on. The conflict in Northern Ireland between Catholics and Protestants is not primarily a religious conflict. It's given that terminology, but what you have are two different peoples with two different ways of living, two different folk ways, and so calling it Catholic versus Protestant simply makes it easier. And so many of the people, I think, who identify as Christian nationalists, that's just a way that they can identify with a particular group that provides a possible way out of the hellscape that they see around them. And I don't think one should get too hung up on the details. Sure, there's a time and a place for getting hung up on the details. What exactly is Christian nationalism? But in the big picture, nationalism is an identification with a people. It usually has a racial, a civic, an ideological, and frequently a religious component. But whatever component people choose to make foremost isn't necessarily accurate. So I think people want safety out of what they see as a declining America.
Oh, well, obviously America is in decline, but I was going to say that the interesting thing is if one wants to use the whole Christian label as a means of identifying oneself for the purpose of avoiding the collapse of traditional America, most Christians are trending quite to the left. As a matter of fact, every, as I mentioned, major Christian denomination has been captured by wokeists. And it's not like this was an armed coup. This happened within the rule book in each and every single denomination. So it's done obviously to keep the religion as congruent as possible with the emerging ideas of those who patronize it, the congregants. So I think that people who want to use Christianity as some means of getting around, what America is becoming, they're not really seeing the forest through the trees. Perhaps they're not even seeing the trees at all. They probably have an idea of Christianity which is very outdated.
Well, we're all highly deluded. Like I'm here sharing my delusions, you're sharing your delusions, the audience is like, reality is so complicated. We struggle to get, some sense of what's going on. So yeah, we're all filled with delusions, but I don't think that Christianity is as left-wing as you say. There are elements of it that are left-wing, but if you told me that someone read his Bible every day, I would say that the odds are above 60% that he's going to vote Republican. Evangelical Christians were Donald Trump's strongest supporters. About approximately 70% of them voted Republican. Donald Trump made an explicit deal with evangelical Christians. He told them in a church in Iowa back in early 2016, I believe, if I enter the White House, Christianity will have power. And so evangelical Christians in particular did a deal with Donald Trump. They didn't focus on his infidelity and his divorces and all that was gross and atheist about him. They focused on, this is a man who will give Christianity power, who appointed 3 Supreme Court justices to overturn Roe v. Wade, which is what many Christians like. This was a really big deal for them. So yeah, it's complicated, but there's nothing inherently left or right about Christianity. Christianity for millennia, for hundreds and hundreds of years, acted as a vehicle for racial nationalism and civic nationalism. So Christianity wasn't always this wimpy liberal thing that we see now. I was just reading a book on the history of England, and it is by Peter Ackroyd, a foundation, the history of England from its earliest beginnings to the Tudors. And so from year 400 until maybe 1700, Christianity was a major force in English nationalism. Like, the kings were aware of the advantages of the Christian faith. It was more effective than the alternatives. The Roman Catholic Church preferred the rule of strong kings and unified governments. It made the work of religious control much easier. The priests were the literate members of the kingdom. They were the ones drawing up legal documents and title deeds and proclaiming what the law was. And the kings were happy to adopt quasi-liturgical roles as the embodiment of the people in public ritual. Now, did the kings have to believe in Christian faith to adopt this quasi-liturgical role? No. So it wasn't primarily an expression of their religiosity. It was just a way of enhancing authority, as a way of enforcing respect and ensuring obedience. So kings and saints appear at the same time in English history. and they're part of the same team that is knitting together the various regions of the country into one nation. A single English church required a single English nation at this
Correct.
stage. And so Christianity has frequently been a force for nationalism, for racial nationalism. It's not like it's some inherent universalist, left wing, degraded thing.
It's Christianity. The thing of it is, people can make out of it whatever they want because inherently it has very little substance. It is something that obviously is an offshoot of Judaism, synthesized with various other religious traditions that were popular in the Mediterranean during the Bronze Age, and over the not just over the years, over the generations, Christianity continues to change. Christianity, with its very, very deep reliance on personal emotion, it's easy to channel it into the interests of whoever is in power. And that's why people on the left and the right are able to use it so reliably. I think this makes it a very bad idea, though, over the long run for any country to base itself on, because at the end of the day, there is no there. And that makes it very easy for somebody to usurp what you're doing and say, no, I have the true Christian belief, and they could point to something in the New Testament. Now, I know you wouldn't, but the theoretical you might say, no, I have the true Christian belief. It's right here. But then somebody points to the contradiction of that, and then you point to the contradiction of what they said, and it goes on and on and on. And this is what makes Christianity to me so infuriating. It's unique in that it's this substance free. But it's really, I think it's very bad for statecraft over the long run. There were iterations of it, as you said, that were very nationalistic, and they did work. But of course, they didn't last. Basically, the more developed a society becomes, the more technologically advanced it grows, the more educated its people are, the less they're willing to accept, supernatural reasons for X, Y, and Z taking place.